his own company. The first one was FRP and later the Porter. So the company really came in disarray. Bought by a guy named Edwin Hare, who was going to make a Hare Motors, of all the names, Mercer, Simplex, and Locomobile, but that ultimately failed as well. And this is the last Mercer that came off the assembly line. And this is the actual car. It's owned by a collector in California. Now, I mentioned William, Walter, who kind of was the originator of the car. He went back to New York after his car company failed and started a trucking company. Guys were in the truck business. That's the Walter Truck. Made a lot of very successful trucking company. A lot of specialty vehicles like snow plows and crash rescue vehicles for airports, that kind of stuff. Was under the William Walter. So he was kind of the more or less the originator or the start of the Mercer, and ultimately was quite successful with the Walter Trucking Company. Mentioned that Bill Durant had a Buick racing team. Very successful racing team, and his best driver was this guy, Louis Chevrolet. Bill Durant was always in trouble. He was always knocking heads with people. He would overextend General Motors numerous times to the point where the board of directors more or less fired him. And they fired him about 1912. They said, get out of Dodge. And he knew that Louis Chevrolet was interested in designing a car. So Bill Durant started United Motors, another conglomerate, and he invited Louis to design a car for him. And this is the first Chevrolet, and there's the first Chevrolet logo. There's, I think Louis is right about there. Anyway, what Bill Durant wanted was kind of a cheap, inexpensive car to compete against the Model T. Unfortunately, what Louis Chevrolet designed, hey, I'm a sports car guy, I'm a race car driver, I'm not going to give you a cheap car, I'll give you a fancy, expensive car. Which was fine, a great car, but it didn't sell very well. Well, when old Louis was on vacation in Europe, Bill Durant took his fancy Chevrolet and kind of cheapened it up and started selling a lot more Chevrolets, but a very inexpensive version. Louis took umbrage at that, left the company, and he had very little to do with Chevrolet after that. He's tried to build a car called a Frontenac, but that was very unsuccessful as well. Here again, we'll show you a number of examples of Chevrolets. Around 1915, Bill Durant was secretly buying up stocks in General Motors. He ultimately took over General Motors again. He had enough stock to take control of the company. So he moved back in, and he pulled Chevrolet along with him to be under the General Motors umbrella. Kind of an interesting story. About 1920, Bill Durant was again in trouble with his financial folks. They again fired him. He left and started another conglomerate called Durant Motors. They sold the Flint, the Durant, the Locomobile, and the Star. And he was doing pretty well until the Great Depression hit. And Bill Durant lost everything in the Great Depression. I understand that he actually tried to prevent the Great Depression from happening by throwing his money at the stock market to try to keep it from failing. Well, needless to say, that didn't work